Welcome to this episode of Relatively Famous, the podcast where I, Chip White, interview relatives of famous people. My famous relative is Vanna White of Wheel of Fortune. She's my sister, hence the podcast. Today, we have Elinor Donahue's son, Peter Ackerman. Elinor was known for Father Knows Best and Andy Griffith and like 100 and something other acting gigs. I want to thank our sponsors, visitmyrtlebeach.com. That's visitmyrtlebeach.com. If you're looking for a great family vacation, you can go to Myrtle Beach area. That's my hometown area. There's 60 miles of beautiful beach, 2,000 restaurants, all kind of fun stuff to do for the family. And if you happen to be traveling with an autistic or sensory sensitive traveler, go to Traveling the Spectrum on Peacock, which is also available on visitmyrtlebeach.com for more details. You know, I forget sometimes that people listen and don't watch, and I talk about us being in Nelco Comics. So for those that are listening, let me give you a quick description. Nelco Comics is in San Antonio. It's a long, thin, eclectic comic book shop with deer head on the walls, guitars hanging, thousands of older comic books. You can see some behind me. You can see the Axie Cab comic, which is Philip's comic book. There's a jukebox, an old vintage jukebox, and an old Galaxian game in here. So you can just kind of see it's not just like a cookie cutter shopping mall comic book shop. It's really eclectic. So anyway, now that you got that pictured, let's welcome our guest today, Peter Ackerman.
Relatively Famous podcast with Chip White.
Peter, welcome to Relatively Famous.
Thank you, Chip. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're the third relative of an Andy Griffith Show alumni that so I've had Dixie Griffith and Karen Knotts, and now I've got Peter Ackerman on.
There you go. And I'm Miss Ellie's son, Elinor Donahue, who played the lady pharmacist, Ellie Walker, in the first season of the Andy Griffith Show. So that's my claim to fame in the Andy Griffith sphere.
Yeah. Now, your mom is also known for 100 and something other acting gigs or something like that. I know Father Knows Best.
Yeah. She played Betty, the oldest daughter on Father Knows Best. That was kind of her breakthrough in television. She had been an actress almost all her life. I mean, she was in vaudeville as a child tap dancing singer in what's called vaudeville, these old traveling stage productions. And then she was discovered by Hollywood and got a contract at MGM. And she's in a few MGM movies as a younger girl under her birth name, Mary Elinor Donahue. And then became a teenager, changed her name to Elinor Donahue, and then got Father Knows Best, where she played oldest daughter Betty Anderson. And then her TV career really took off from there. And she was, beyond that, Andy Griffith Show. She was Felix Unger's girlfriend, Miriam, on The Odd Couple, and countless episodes of almost every single show that was produced in the 60s and 70s. She's on the original season of Star Trek in one episode entitled Metamorphosis, and has a lead role in that. And gosh, she did Mork and Mindy, Happy Days, Love Boat, you name it. So
yeah.
That's my mom's claim to fame.
Well, okay, so you're also now the third or fourth Star Trek alumni. We've had Grace Lee Whitney's son and Leonard Nimoy's cousin. So
Awesome.
We're going to connect them all. Your mother, and we're going to get to your life here in just a second, but your mother played a lot of comedic roles, but to me, and this is just my opinion, she always has kind of this stoic look, like really serious. Maybe it's her beauty that you don't, for me, it's like I don't associate her with not slapstick comedy, but being a comedian, so to speak. Does that make sense?
More broad comedy, yeah. And there are a couple of actresses, and I won't name them. They're fine actresses, and at least one of them is still alive, who kind of had my mom's character, but on a little ditzier level. And so they would get hired sometimes instead of her on productions where they wanted the Betty Anderson type, that girl next door, to be a little ditzier. And no, my mom is a really good actress, and she understood how to play comedy, but how to keep grounded in the character that she was playing. And if I may, one of my favorite experiences happened a few years ago. Here comes another connection. My mom did a Murder, She Wrote episode. And in that episode, she had a teenage son, played by a young actor. And her character got angry at her teenage son, and just for a split second gives that actor a look. And my wife was watching it with me, and my wife kind of jumped and said, "Oh, we've seen that look," because we've seen my mom, get angry like anybody else. And I'm like, "Yep." And when I was that actor's age, I received that same look a lot. So yeah, my mom was very grounded in reality in the characters that she was playing.
Oh, that's funny. When I got that look, it was usually followed by my full name, and
Mm.
then I knew that then I knew I was in trouble. Uh, Now, your mom's still with us, right?
She is.
Yeah,
She's about to turn. Did she turn 89? I think this year. Yeah,
yeah. That's amazing.
next
What's
month.
it
Yeah.
What's it like when you guys get together? Do you ever talk about specific things that she's done or being favored, or is it you kind of leave the work and the past career out of it, and it's more about kids and life and what's a conversation like when you sit down with your mom these days?
Well, I'll start by setting the scene a little bit. Is that it's not like two different entities. My mother and what she does is so intertwined. And the reason I say that in my book, Mom, Dad, Me, and Classic TV, I share about the time, one of my first memories, I'm sitting on my mother's lap. I'm probably 3.5 years old, and it's an afternoon, weekday afternoon, and Father Knows Best is on the TV. And my mother points at the screen and says, look, honey, there's mommy, there's mommy. And I saw this woman on the screen. And as soon as she opened her mouth and said something, I recognized that voice as the voice of the woman whose lap I was sitting on. And so I've always known my mother as this person who took care of me and cooked meals for me and tucked me into bed, but also was shown on television quite frequently. And so it kind of all intertwines. And I speak to my mother every week. I'm currently on the East Coast. She still lives in California. And for instance, a recent phone call was when one of her co-stars from Father Knows Best, Lauren Chapin, died. And I phoned her to make sure she had that sad news, and she did. And that prompted some memories that she shared with me. And but then it can be about talking about her upcoming great grandchild, because my daughter is going to have a child in June of this year. So it can go the gamut of what we talk about. And we each love reading mystery novels. So we share what we're reading. And that's the general discussion every week when my mom and I talk.
Oh, that's good. What kind of mystery novels do you like to read?
Well, I like the hard boiled. So Robert B. Parker's Spencer. If you want to go deeper into the past, Raymond Chandler's Philip Marlowe. Those are the kind of stories I like.
And a lot of those actually became television shows and movies.
They did. They
Yeah.
did. Mickey Spillane's My Camera is an example.
Yeah, Mickey. He was living just outside of Myrtle Beach, I think Pawleys Island area, when he passed away for years. I mean,
Yeah.
people used to always see him. I don't think I ever got to meet him though. But I have reached out, or I am reaching out to his wife to see if maybe she'd like to do the show.
And go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say another person. I don't know if he fits because he's not related. So never mind. I was talking shop with you and realized not related to anybody, so it doesn't matter. So
Oh
move
well,
on.
yeah, we'll do another podcast.
Or
What?
I'll email you my suggestion. There we go.
Excellent, excellent. What is your family life like? Because again, I'm going to always suggest this. People, if you don't know who Elinor Donahue is, Google her. Also, Google Peter, because your father was also in the business.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll get back to the other question I was going to ask. But your father was in the business, and that, you know what? Let's do this. I had a listener email in a question, and he goes, "This is for Peter. As a child, Peter, what was it like having two well-known parents who worked in separate parts of the industry?"
Again, as I alluded to earlier, it was quite natural. My dad was an executive producer of many TV shows. His name is, or was, Harry Ackerman, and he was the executive producer of Bewitched, Hazel, Dennis the Menace, The Flying Nun, Gidget, so many of these family shows that people are still watching. And he worked during the day doing his executive producer thing. My mom, when I was born, my mom wasn't on a series. She didn't do a series again until I was a teenager. So mom was home a lot, and we boys would kind of go to bed early. I'm one of four boys between the two of them, and they would have dinner together after. I think that's when they would talk shop. And as I got older, I would listen in sometimes. I was the quiet one in the family for a while, and I would listen to their conversations. And so that gave me a lot to write about in my book. And yeah, so it was just the one good thing they did as parents. You think Hollywood, you think executive producer dad, actress mother, you think we wined and dined on Crystal every night and the butler served us and we had our noses in the air looking down at the common folk. And that's so far from the truth. Whatever it was about my parents and their upbringings, they raised us, even though I was born in the height of their careers and we were in a big house in the hills of the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles. We weren't brought up to be snobbish. We were just people. And I realized looking back on my life, I had a friend in elementary school who probably back then would have been whispered about coming from the wrong side of the tracks. But he was my friend. And so he could spend the night at my house. I could spend the night at his house. And my parents never said anything about it, like he's beneath us or he's different than us. So we were always just kind of raised normally and had that kind of normal father knows best, uh, bewitched family upbringing. And so I really thank them for that. It later turned out to be a gift because as their fortunes waned, my dad's in the 70s when the edgier comedies came in. All in the Family is a good example. That wasn't obviously a Harry Ackerman type of comedy, and his brand of humor and brand of television fell out of favor for a long while, and my dad couldn't get work. And we had to move from that big house in the hills into a smaller house in a neighborhood. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter because we just went to a different set of neighbors. And that's because we were brought up right. So there's a little encompassing of the family life and what it was like. I'll add for that listener's question. I think the one thing that was different is that I loved going to the sets and the studios and having two parents that worked in that field doubled my chances of going. And so a lot of my memories have to do with sets that I went to that I share in my book.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the book.
Oops, sorry.
That's
My
okay.
watch is talking to me.
That's all right. I'm not glad, but it's interesting when you mention the downturn in careers and moving. I think because a lot of people get this image in their head that everybody in the business at some point is just fabulously wealthy and they're that way forever, unless they become, drug addicts, whatever, and they lose everything. You never really hear about just the normal downsizing of life. Did it kind of play with your, because I used to produce films too, did it play with your dad's head a little bit when all of a sudden no one's really calling to ask him to come to work? I mean, as a producer, that's It's tough when the phone quits ringing.
It probably does, and based on my age and based on how he handled it, there's a style of leadership that I know about with what I do. When things go awry and things aren't the way they were, people look to the leaders to see how to react. And so my dad, I would say, remained rather stoic. Not falsely, he just kept doing the next right thing. And so if somebody called him wanting some advice, he would offer it. I have so many people who've reached out to me over the years and said, "Oh my gosh." Um, yeah, one guy was a makeup artist or a hairstylist or something, and I ran into him somewhere, and he said, "Oh my gosh, I was a budding wannabe screenwriter, and I sent your dad a treatment for an episode of a TV show, asking if he would just give me feedback on it, and he did, and I still have it, and it's got his marks and comments on it, and he was so supportive, but honest at the same time." That's who my dad was. So he would just do the next right thing. And thankfully, that holding on, it paid off because I'm getting my decades now crowded together. It was in the 80s. Uh, People were looking for something new, and on NBC, uh, they were just trying to throw things against the wall to see what would stick. And they landed on The Cosby Show, which got kicked around to the other networks who didn't want it. And The Cosby Show went back to that father knows best, Gidget, household, family, warm hearted comedy. And then everybody started doing it again. And so my dad was able to executive produce a syndicated TV series called The New Gidget in the middle 80s because of that resurgence. And so he passed in 1991, and he passed being an active executive producer and having been awarded a few years before a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So he had a good life, and not mention, I'm just going to throw it in here. He had been the vice president for CBS Television, and his job in the 50s was to help uh, take radio shows and create them into TV shows. And so he was very instrumental in bringing a radio show called My Favorite Husband and midwifing it, as people have called, into what we know today as I Love Lucy.
Oh wow. Okay. That's some cool history. Now,
Great.
now you mentioned that because of his leadership and attitude, it affects what you do today. Tell me what you do. Let's dive into Peter. What does Peter do?
A lot of that is a little bit of that is in my book. The
What's
part
the
that's
name
in
of the
my
book
book, so I'm
again?
not going to dwell in it.
Tell me the name
But
of the book again.
So again, the name of my book is Mom, Dad, Me, and Classic TV. And I would encourage people, if you're looking for something written by me, there are 3 published Peter Ackermans out there. So I use my middle initial, Peter K. Ackerman, and Mom, Dad, Me, and Classic TV. So I told you about how I loved going to the sets. And so I knew at a young age the TV industry is what I wanted to get into. And eventually, my mom said that they were not going to put me into acting until I could make the decision legally as an 18-year-old. And so that's what I did. I started being an actor, did some small parts. I think my most memorable for me is the few times I was on Days of Our Lives and I was wheeling a gurney through the hospital, and my line was, "Yes, doctor." That was about my claim to fame. I did a few non-memorable things like that. And then while my dad was doing the new Gidget, of which, because of nepotism, I appeared on a couple of episodes, um, he had, I think it was knee surgery, and asked me to be his driver for a couple of weeks. So I put my waiter job on hold and became his driver. And I went to his office, the sets, casting, editing. And it was my first time as an adult going to these places. And I became fascinated with the other side of the camera. And so I became a production assistant in music videos and TV commercials. And I worked with the likes of Aerosmith and Madonna and the Moody Blues and Peter Frampton and the music videos and various stars, Burt Lancaster on TV commercials. And all that's in the book. I'll fast forward. After working at Warner Brothers Television for a number of years, I was on the TV show Friends as the assistant to the line producer for 2 seasons, seasons 2 and 3. I was the assistant to Todd Stevens, who was the line producer. And I suddenly realized I'm married, I've got kids, I'm fulfilled in all these ways. I'm not fulfilled in my job. And here I was on a hit show. And so I decided to step out of TV altogether. And I took a leap of faith, as they call it. And I started working a 9 to 5 job in a property management office for a couple of years. And one thing led to another. The longer story is coming in the next book. I felt a call from a higher power, and a lifelong Episcopalian, a Christian religion. I got into the process, eventually went to seminary, and became ordained as an Episcopal priest. And for any listeners, Episcopal priests, we can be married and have children, which I am and do. And that's what I do. And currently, we get to find our own jobs. We're not moved around by anybody. And currently, I'm happy in what's called the Diocese of Washington, and I serve a parish in the state of Maryland, and love what I do.
Okay, that's fascinating. That's because that is kind of a from Hollywood to priest or
Yeah.
is you don't hear that a lot.
You don't.
What?
That's probably the title of the next book, Hollywood to the Priesthood.
Okay, there you go. I like that title. What is family life like for you? Because as you said, you watched Father Knows Best and Hazel and Bewitched and Andy Griffith and I don't necessarily watched Andy Griffith, but reruns. So there's that instillment. Has that carried over in real life for you?
I would say only in how I look at events. I always say this: if ever you're one, not you, if ever somebody is getting stressed, think sitcom. Just think situation comedy. If you look at, let's take the Andy Griffith Show. Okay, if you took any episode of the Andy Griffith Show, you could make it into a drama. You could have the same things happening. Let's say it's the one where Ellie Walker, my mom, decides to run for city council, which no woman had ever done. That could be a dramatic episode. And the angry people in there could be just really dramatic and dark. But they take that same premise and they shine a little light on it, and you see beloved characters getting angry, which is different than an angry person getting angry. But a beloved character getting angry is humorous and light. And so because of that, because of the shows my parents did, I think I'm better than most, and I continually get better at it, not at seeing the humor in something, but seeing the humanity in people. So people don't just become somebody who disagrees with me. They're a flesh and blood human being. And I can usually find in anybody characteristics that I like. And so that helps me get through life.
Yeah, that's a good attitude. I mean, you're right. I'm sitting as you're saying that, I'm almost spacing out because I'm thinking of like Bewitched and different shows. Like, okay, if you did switch that and took the comedy but made it dark, it is a little, it could be daily life more so than the comedy.
Right. And that's what my dad did when he produced those shows. And I think there was something lost when humor went to adults, because the TV shows in my dad's day in the 60s came from the idea of radio, which was radio in a half hour or an hour show. You gave the listener a chance to escape, just escape from their daily lives. And so television, Bewitched, gave you a chance to get out of your doldrums, go into a fantasy world where there were people like you, husbands, wives, children, friends, nosy neighbors, and have a little fun with it, and let you for 30 minutes escape the news and the day. And it was a nice respite, and I think people enjoyed it. And it reminded us that, okay, we all know that we can't get the problems in our lives usually solved in a nice 22-minute period. However, we can put everything in perspective. And I think that's why shows like my mom's and my dad's, I have fun sometimes at the deeper cable channels, I call it Antenna TV or one of them, Me TV. Every once in a while, it'll have a lineup of shows, and I'll look at the morning's lineup of shows, and it either has my mother or was produced by my dad. And it's like, yeah, those shows are still being watched because people want that ability to kind of say, the world is not such a bad place. Yes, these shows elevated the goodness, but what's wrong with that? What's wrong about remembering that there is good around us? There
Yeah,
is hope, there is love. And I think all that's helpful.
it is. And that's kind of what I tell people about this podcast is like, look, I'm not changing the world. I'm not, trying to influence anybody. It's like, here's 30 minutes of a conversation with someone. They just happen to be related to someone famous. What their relationship is depends, right? But it's like, here's this opportunity to just have a conversation, to turn off the news, to turn off this, and kind of have a little one-on-one, even though you're just listening, conversation with someone that you normally might not. So I can relate to what you're saying on the old shows. Growing up, or even today, I tend to get a lot of the older actor, film, and TV because the kids and relatives of those are doing a lot they can, writing books to keep their families' name out in the public, right? And not in a bad way. I don't mean that in bad, because we've had Ron DeFord from Hazel, and you and Cindy Mitchum from Robert Mitchum's family, and Julie Rogers from Roy and Dale. So a lot of, and of course Andy Griffith. Do you guys? Because some have come from recommendations. Do you guys hang out sometime? Is there like, did you know each other growing up, or is there a big disconnect from that kind of Hollywood era? If that makes sense, what I'm saying.
Yeah, because I think I'll go back to, again, how we were raised in just a regular neighborhood. They probably existed, and maybe Beverly Hills is one of the places. We didn't, we Ackerman boys with our parents didn't grow up in some enclave where there were just industry people around. And of course, LA, this was the days when you could work any job and save enough money and buy a house, so it wasn't just the wealthy living in the neighborhoods. So we didn't purposely live next to other famous people. I remember within a 2-3 block radius of where I lived in that smaller house in North Hollywood, Larry White, who played Larry Tate on Bewitched, lived. And so I would always see him walking around. And I'd go to nearby Toluca Lake and run into the pharmacy for a pack of gum and bump into Andy Griffith, who was coming out. So they were around, but we didn't really socialize. And thus, unless I went to school, like for a while, this young woman sadly passed away too early, but I was a classmate for a while of a woman named Kelly Troop, and her mom was Julie London, the singer and actress, and her dad was Bobby Troop, the musician and actor. And that's the closest I got to hanging out with people. But when I moved here to where I am in Maryland, I discovered that Ron DeFore and I were relatively close. No pun intended to the name of the podcast. And so we occasionally we meet. We meet at a halfway point for lunch, and
Oh,
it's
that's awesome.
great getting to know this guy. And when I go to Andy Griffith festivals, I'm going to one in Tennessee in April, and I usually go to Mayberry Days in September in North Carolina. That's when I see Dixie and everybody else. And so, yeah, I bump into people, I meet them, and it's always a joy. I was just speaking with because his mother passed away, but Lauren Chapin's son, and it's just there's a connection. Our parents work together, and so
Right.
there is that kind of connection, but we don't hang out.
Yeah. Okay. Can you describe if in it's, I don't know which day it'd be, what is or what was the happiest day of your life?
The happiest day of my life. Oh, I am going to this one. A couple popped into my mind. I was I went to Catholic school, which the only reason I share that is that it has to do with the timing. During Easter, um, productions like what my dad was doing took the week before Easter Sunday off. But at the time, I don't know if it still is, Catholic schools took the week after Easter Sunday off. So, because of that conundrum, and my mother working, and she couldn't take me to the set with her, um, we had to figure out what to do with me the week after Easter one year. And my dad said, well, I'll just take Peter to the studio with me every day. And for some reason, my older brother went the first day, but then Tuesday through Friday, I went to the set of the Paul Lynde show. This is probably, I think, 1974. And I sat in the stands of the Paul Lynde show every day and watched over and over the rehearsals. I sitting behind me for a scene that took place in a commune with a bunch of hippies was this young girl who I recognized from the TV show Courtship of Eddie's Father. Her name is Jodie Foster, was sitting next to me. Stiller and Mira, the great comedy team. Jerry Stiller, who went on to great fame on Seinfeld, and whose son Ben Stiller, and Mira's son Ben Stiller, is famous today. They had a part on that episode, and it was just magical. And that time, I think what was so magical about it, as I think about that week, is I finally understood what my dad did for a living. Um, he would go to work, he would come home, he might drop me off at the Bewitched set, but I never really knew what he did until I sat in my spot for that week in the stands and watched every rehearsal, every run through, every network run through, and including the taping of the show on Friday night. Um, it still gives me chills and lots of memories around that. And yeah, that
That's cool
that
because a
helped
lot of people
define me.
don't know what a
That helped
producer
define
does.
me too.
Yeah. Okay. What is with your family? How many kids do you have?
I've got two kids. They're adults. Our son lives with us. He's mildly special needs, and so he works, a not 9 to 5 job, but he works a full time job. And my wife of this year, it's 39 years, and it doesn't seem like it. Marie. Marie is 39 years, and she is a restaurant manager and a licensed sommelier, which is a wine and spirits expert. So
Yeah.
she she works in that industry. I have been sober for 14 years, and it's great that she became a sommelier after I became sober, or I would have eradicated all of her homework and studies. So I always like to joke about that. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, so she loves what she does, and our kids. My daughter Amy, she works in basically in the polling industry. She recently switched jobs, polling and data industry, and she works out of and lives with her husband in Chicago. And they are, as I've mentioned, expecting their first child.
That's awesome. Okay. The funny thing is, I've been sober 23 years. And
Awesome.
right after I got sober, my wife got in the wine business. So
There you go. See,
it
they
was like,
know. They
it was
know.
like,
Now it's safe.
yeah, gotta love your humor, right?
Yeah.
And it's, hey, look, and as you know, it was my problem, not hers. So I was okay with it.
Yeah.
And we're getting to the end.
Mhm.
Like I said, I did kind of keep these like the sitcom, like a 30-minute conversation.
Understood.
What is the question that I didn't ask or that you wish people would ask, but they never do?
I don't know about a question that people never ask because I'm always open to anything, and there's never something that holds back. What I usually expect out of these, because when people know I've worked with celebrities in TV commercials, music videos, I visited the set of many of my dad's shows and often the sets of my mother's shows, I will get that question: who's the most famous person you've ever met? Or I'll get who's the nicest. So, The most famous, I would say, is I've already mentioned his name is Burt Lancaster, who was doing a commercial for some kind of insurance for older folks. And that was just special. Nothing miraculous really happened, but he was only around for a few years or so after that commercial. And I knew I was working with a legend. And so it was just, he's the most famous. And I have to say, the nicest, I'm going to go to the music video world, and I cover the reason why in this book, but was Peter Frampton. I did 24 hours on a soundstage, working as a production assistant on a music video for Peter Frampton for a song from an album, not one of his big ones. Album was called When All the Pieces Fit, I think. And whatever song was the single from that album was the music video I worked on. And he could not have been nicer to this kid who mostly helped him out, handed him things, swept up cigarette butts from the stage. He could not have been nicer to me in including me in the things that we did on the set for fun. And I'll never forget that.
Those are two good people. My sister's first house up in the Hollywood Hills, Frampton lived at the end of the street, and I would often see him in a little BMW convertible zipping back and forth. Okay, so we're like at 30 something minutes. Peter, this has been awesome. Congratulations on your sobriety, and maybe we can do this again. While we were chatting, we had Bellamy Blackstone, who is the producer of Wheel of Fortune, on. She's the daughter of Harry Blackstone Jr. and the granddaughter of Harry Black, the magician. And I started thinking, you know what? Maybe Wheel of Fortune should do a relatively famous week where it's not the celebrities, but it's the relatives of. We'll get you on the show playing.
Get that, because my wife and I play Wheel of Fortune almost every night when we're home together. So I'm ready.
Okay. Well, I'm really bad at it, so I'm not going to be on the show. But Peter, I really thank you for your time today. This has been a lot of fun. And again, tell everybody the name of the book and where they can find it. We're also going to have it in the link in the show notes, but I want everybody to know where they can find your book.
That's awesome. The book is called Mom, Dad, Me, and Classic TV. Author is myself, Peter K. Ackerman, and you can get it from Barnes & Noble and Amazon, all the usual ways that one can obtain books. It's available as an ebook and hardcover and paperback.
Okay, I do got one more question.
Awesome.
Your son, you said he's mildly autistic. Myrtle Beach is our sponsor, visit myrtlebeach.com, and they are really gearing to make travel easy for autistic and sensory sensitive travelers, and they promote Traveling the Spectrum, the show. What's the deepest joy your son brings to you?
I'll say he's not autistic, and if he's mildly, he's never been diagnosed as such. The closest I've gotten to a diagnosis for him was learning disabled. And he has some high anxiety, which is treated, etc. What's nice about it is, in being the grandson of the parents that I just talked about, he is a nice guy. He's 39. He's not 39. Sorry, that's the years of marriage. He is 33, I think. And he is the nicest person. He's not violent, doesn't get angry. He sees the good in people, and he's trusting and warm. And it just brings me joy. And I'm like, I don't think I had anything to do with that. But somebody did. And he's a wonderful guy.
Well, thank you for your time. Tell everybody in your family hello, and we're grateful that they let you spend some time with us.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Peter. Well, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed chatting with Peter. What a fascinating life. God, so many shows, so many people that he probably didn't even touch on. Peter, thanks for your time. I want to thank you, the listener, the viewer, however you are experiencing this podcast. I'm grateful that you spend the time with us. I'm grateful when you share it, that you like it, when you make comments. I try to answer them all that I can, especially on YouTube. So thank you. I'm very humbled that you spend time with us. I want to thank our sponsor. That's visitmyrtlebeach.com. Again, that's my hometown area. The beach is amazing. The food is amazing. There's so many things to do. There's fishing, scuba diving, surfing, building sandcastles. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And you can learn more about that at visitmyrtlebeach.com. And as I mentioned in the podcast, if you are traveling with an autistic or sensory sensitive traveler, check out Traveling the Spectrum on Peacock. And you can also find links to that on visitmyrtlebeach.com. Also want to thank our producers, Nelco Media. Without them, we would be nothing. I want to thank Nelco Comics, our location, which I talked about a little bit in the opening. If you're looking for a comic book, go on their website, nelcocomics.com, or come by the shop in San Antonio. But again, thank you, everyone. And most important, if you are related to someone famous or know someone related to someone famous, I'm always looking for guests. Reach out to me at podcastrelativelyfamous@gmail.com, podcastrelativelyfamous@gmail.com. Thanks.
You've been listening to Relatively Famous with Chip White. Please like and subscribe to Relatively Famous with Chip White.